have a question.
Oh, Johnny.
You might bring some sunscreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the white people.
All right. You good?
Yep.
Okay, so we got a lot of things to go over. As some of you have probably experienced yourself, there's been a lot of frustration in the last couple of months. Had a lot of issues. We're going to change a few things that I'm about to go over, and I'm going to ask a few culture changes, a few format changes, that type of thing. As we go along, if you have questions, call them out. Let's handle them in a moment, okay? All right, so first of all, we're going to change the format for the base team for Holloman. Right now, we have a large group of people. We take who we can to every tournament, and that has resulted in some pretty aggressive failure lately. We've had people playing out of position in serious tournaments. That's a lot of fault of your coaching, so I apologize for that. We're going to change that up to having 2 dedicated men's teams and 1 dedicated women's team. Co-ed will probably be few and far between, but we'll do it if we can, mostly just for fun and getting some reps in if we can. So there will be a men's varsity team. In order to be on the varsity team, other than having the skill set for it, you got to be dedicated to the game. Okay, I understand there's life that happens. You got family stuff going on, you got work stuff going on, but ultimately, if you're not dealing with a family issue, if you're not stuck at work, you need to be out here for more than 1 practice every couple weeks. We've had a lot of issues with regular attendance from people. Obviously, this doesn't apply to everyone, but you know who you are, both here and not here. If you're going to be on the regular team, you need to be here regularly, because we got a lot of stuff to work on as a team that we cannot do if we're only seeing each other when we're already at the tournament. Okay, so that needs to change. Also, with this varsity team, there's going to be a few conditions to go to a tournament. I'm going to try and get things scheduled early on enough that I can get a feel for who we're going to bring. If certain conditions are not met for who we're taking to that tournament, we will not go. We're not going to carry a half-ass team with a bunch of people that are going to have to play out of position or things like that to go get our ass kicked and spend a shitload of money and time to look like shit. Obviously, the biggest instance of that was Band-Aid recently, for any of you who went. I know you were embarrassed just as much as I was. It was a bad tournament, and that was a fault of, frankly, bad planning on my part, and then I think also a lack of focus while we were there, which I'll get into a little bit more later on. The second team, we are going to have a men's JV team. This is going to be, think of it as basically a farm team for the varsity team. We are still a military team, and we do still need to carry a lot of people. However, bringing everyone to everything is not fair to you. It's not smart for time and money sake to bring everyone to every tournament, whether that be because you're not going to get enough play time, or when you do, it may not be in a situation where you can find success. We need to get you reps at a different level before we bring you to a serious tournament. So this month is going to be a bit of a retry out, basically, for all month. We're going to have a lot of practices every week, probably Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday, like we've already talked about in the group chat. Attend as much as you can. We're going to use everything throughout this month to assess who needs to be running with the varsity team and who needs to be running with the JV team. Understand, if you get put with the JV team, that does not mean we don't want you. That means we see potential in you, and we need to work on a few things to grow you into a player that can be successful at the varsity level consistently. It's unfair to you, and it's unfair to the rest of the team to try and put you in a serious situation and expect you to perform at a level that everyone else can. Okay? Again, that is a farm team. It's not the, put you in a corner and give you playtime just for the sake of getting you playtime. I would not waste my time if that were the case. If you get picked up for the JV team, it means I see potential in you and I want to grow you into the varsity side. Okay?
So if you bump somebody up to varsity, does somebody get bumped down to JV?
So we are going to be carrying less people on the main team now. So there are going to be a handful of people who do get bumped down to that JV team, obviously, because right now I think we have 35 guys. We'll probably wind up only carrying about 15 to 20 on the varsity team. The rest are going to be on the JV team. There may be at some point a handful of floaters. If you're right on the edge, we may start taking you to a few things, but we'll see. That's also, I'll add in, JV team isn't necessarily a non-tournament team. I am going to try and make it so that we can have the varsity team for civilian ball playing at D and the JV team playing at E, so that you can get good quality reps in tournament against other people of your caliber to get successful reps, build your confidence, build your experience in an environment which you can succeed. And then on the military side, we also have the ability to leverage the intramural level. So there are actually 3 levels. I don't know if everyone is aware of this to the military ball. There's varsity A, there's varsity B, and then there's intramural. And that's not just talking about intramural on base, that's travel ball intramural. A intramural division at Band-Aid actually had a larger division than we did. So it's not nothing, but it's going to be a more approachable way to get reps in so you can build your skill level.
I think adding to what Marty said is, like, are you talking about after you guys make a team? After they make a varsity team, if somebody goes up to varsity, does someone else on that team have to get bumped down after they make it?
You got your 20-man roster, and you can only carry 20. So does that mean if you pick up 21, then you can bump up somebody?
Basically, we will have a hard set group of people that we run with. That's going to be handled on a case-by-case basis, but I definitely don't want to go above 20 people on that main roster. We're probably going to start with 17. But again, it's going to depend on how things go for this next month, and it's going to be a rolling decision. So just because that's the decision made at the end of June doesn't mean that will still be the same roster in July or August or September. Okay, things will change as they do in a military team. The league will be open to anyone who is a part of any of our teams, whether that be women, JV, or varsity. League is basically just to come out, get some reps, have some fun, and take a little bit of time off of super serious softball. Okay. That being said, at league, you should really be focusing on self-improvement. Doesn't necessarily have to be 100%, but it also shouldn't be 50% and bullshitting and wasting time. If you're out here, work on something. Maybe there's something that you're not particularly good at, but you want to get better at. Like if that's going backside or working on chop shot hitting or whatever, a new position, let me know, we'll rotate you in. League is about having some fun, but you can also still work on some things at the same time, okay? In a less serious environment. That's the place to do that. I've already talked about practices a little bit, but Saturdays, assuming we have enough people to do this, the plan for Saturdays is to focus on defense. We've had a lot of trouble on the defense side of the ball as well as the offense side of the ball, but Saturday is where we'll have enough time and hopefully more people to be able to focus on that defensive side. So rather than starting with BP every time and just seeing how things go, we're going to start with defense usually on Saturdays, and then we'll run in some BP afterward. That way we don't have half the team leave by the time we get to defense. Okay, stat chasing. Notice the big issue on the team with stat chasing. So understand there is no 1, there are no 2, there are no 3 numbers on Game Changer that tell the entire story of how you are doing. I've noticed a lot of people fixating on a handful of those, and it's causing you to, in post-game, rather than assessing how you were hitting, the reasons you were hitting that way, or the reasons you were having trouble in the field, you're just looking at that one thing and fixating on either I did well or I suck. When we keep those stats to tell a story. Understand, again, no one stat tells an entire story. It matters how hard you're hitting the ball. It matters where you're hitting the ball. It matters when you're getting good hits and when you're not. Clutch is a big part of softball. Understanding when you should be swinging 100% and when you should take a little off and get a base hit. These are all things that are used in assessing your quality. We know that. You should know that as well. Stats are used to tell a story. I cannot watch every moment of every game and think critically in the moment of how that person has done throughout the game or throughout the day. I use the stats to tell that story in post and talk with my assistant coaches about how that player is doing overall. Try not to concern yourself with any one at bat. Try not to concern yourself with any one day. People have off days. Focus on what you did wrong and what you can improve on rather than I'm great or I suck. Okay. For that reason, to try and limit the amount that people are fixating on stats, we are going to remove the ability for individual players to see their stats. Okay. If you would like to go over how you are doing or have questions about areas for improvement, please let one of us know, and we as coaches will happily sit down with you and go over a more complete picture about what you can do to improve yourself, what you're doing well, what you're doing wrong, etc. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool. Okay. As usual, it's difficult to plan practices if we don't know who all is going to be here. So please use Game Changer and foot stomp that once and move on. When scheduling tournaments from here on out, I'm going to try and make sure we have at least a month prior to a tournament where things are posted to the team. Hey, this is when we would like to go to this tournament. And then the drop dead for go, no go call is going to be made no less than 2 weeks out. So that's where I was talking about, a certain number of players from each position in order, at least for the varsity side, to go to a tournament has to be met before that 2-week mark. Otherwise, we cut it. Please communicate early and often. If you don't know, let us know you don't know, rather than just not answering an RSVP, okay? If you're leaning toward no, click no. If we pick you up later, awesome, but I need to know it's more than likely going to be a no, okay? All right. Attitude in the dugout has been a big issue for a lot of different reasons. The biggest one that I noticed, at least in Band-Aid, and I had a couple other people notice and bring it to my attention as well, that they had concerns, is focusing on the game. So just because you're not in the game doesn't mean you don't have a role to play. There are a million things that a team needs to do in order to be performing at the top level. If you are sitting on the bench, you can be making sure we always have balls ready to go. You can be cleaning up bats. You can be watching outfielders to see how they're positioning. Who's got a good arm, who's got a bad arm. What outfielders are trying to get the runner at third every time, and what outfielders are splitting the runners at first and third. And then use that information, relay it to your teammates. Help them with things that they can't focus on. Players have to focus on their own game and what they're doing. Think about every little situation. They don't have time to focus on all those little details. This can be the role of someone who is not actively in the game. And ideally, we would have a bench full of people who could focus on those things. Focus on how the pitcher is doing. Hey, I've noticed he's not been given a whole lot of first pitch strikes. See a pitch. Make him work. Hey, he's got this pitch, or the umpire is calling a lot of flats. Be ready for that. Things like this. There's all kinds of roles that you can play. Just because you are not currently a position player doesn't mean you should be sitting on the bench, figuring out what you're going to be doing after the game or who we're going to play next. Worry about the game. Worry about what's happening here and now. Help the team. Okay? Attitude is a big part of what's going to get you more opportunities on the field. If we're seeing that you've got the heart for the game and you really want to play, it's going to be hard to constantly say no to that. Because it can be obvious that you've got the passion for it. So at the very least, I got to throw you out there to see how it goes. Whereas if you got someone on the bench who's more focused on, their tea time tomorrow after we lose, rather than when am I going to get in or what can I do to help the team, that's going to show too. And it's going to become a lot easier to bench you. Okay. Between games, when we're at tournaments, if we are not out yet, again, you should still be focusing on next game and building to the next game. I understand there are a lot of things to do at tournaments. Some of us bring our families. Got to get families fed and figure out what's going on with them. But ultimately, we are there to play. You need to be focused on the next game and making sure you're ready for the next game. Get hydrated, soak up some AC if you have to. Ideally, we can all hang out together and chat about, maybe changes we're going to make, good things we did last game, bad things we did last game, things like this, and stay together as a team if we can. There are things to handle, but those things to handle shouldn't be going out and drinking 4 or 5 beers between games. It shouldn't be going out and playing some putt-putt real quick. Stuff like that. That can be after as a luxury. Particularly for tournaments like Band-Aid and Worlds and things like this, we're going to have time between games. Things that are extracurricular to the weekend should be saved for either before or after games. If we have 2 different divisions, like a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, Sunday, and we're out on Thursday, sure, do some things Friday, but don't plan those things to do Friday on Tuesday. A lot of people were focused on what they were going to do Friday while we were still playing on Thursday. Big no-no, okay? The focus should be the game. What happens after is just bonus points. All right, I briefly mentioned it. Alcohol has been an issue, but I'll foot stomp that one more time. Ultimately, people are dedicating their time and money to this game. It's really difficult to stay focused and have passion for the game when you've got people who are drunk mid-game. That's part of getting ready for the game. That's part of getting ready for the rest of the tournament. We need to be making sure we're not going into a game with players drunk. Yeah, that's all I got to say on that. Are there any questions about anything I said?
For the new teams, are we going to get new letters for permissive TDYs and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, new letters will be drafted. We've got a couple of new players that were coming on anyway, so it's going to have to be required anyway. We'll probably wind up drafting 3 separate memos just for the sake of length. The FSS commander is a lot more hesitant about signing things if it's a laundry list of players versus having 3 dedicated teams and explaining why those 3 exist. Then they'll sign it pretty quick. So we'll probably have a varsity letter, a JV letter, and a women's letter. That's not to call you out as separate, and that's not to say that things can't change without signing another letter. That's just to make sure we get the letters signed. And I don't have to have 50 people on one letter and try to explain why I've got 50 people on one letter. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right. We good? Cool. Let's go play some D. Thank you.